We are Team Romeo. My name is Seth. This is Sherry. That is Brad. And that is Katie. And we'd first like to start off by thanking you guys for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us today to give us this real-world experience that not every college student has. Now that we're getting into the case, we're going to look at Brown Shoe Co. and how we can expand into Europe. First thing we're going to do is look at the history of Brown Shoe just a little bit, just so we know where we came from. That way we can have a better idea of where we want to go, especially in Europe. Brown Shoe Co. was established in 1878 in St. Louis, and it had its manufacturing in Boonville, Missouri, because of the train system and the river, so they could distribute their products more easily. Also, it has a revenue of $2.6 billion today and has over 1,200 stores in Canada and the U.S. It has a family of 10 brands, both licensed and owned by them, and it's operating in 60 countries with 40 different partners.
All right, now I'm going to talk to you about the obstacles of entering a foreign market, and specifically for Brown Shoe Company and entering the European market. Now, one of the most important things is identifying the need for your company in that foreign market. As most companies do want to expand abroad these days, are you ready for it, and is there a need? And for Brown Shoe, there is a need for women in the market currently, as the recession and other factors are making it harder for profits and money. And with Brown Shoe Company, their idea for women's shoes is going to get a luxury brand for classy shoes. But these classy shoes are comfortable and are a good value. And that's what they're focusing on. And the delusion of the brand name power. Now, with this, it's more that in Europe, those brand names aren't as well known. They know American brands, but you really need an innovative marketing effort, like we will discuss later, to enter the foreign market and really get a good push. For the cultural nuance, this I more mean the different types of cultures in Europe. Europe is not just one country. Honestly, it's multiple countries. They speak many different languages, and you need to be able to adapt to that, along with keeping an open mind and open ears and not using your self-reference criterion to be biased against any business practices. Moving on to finding reliable partners. Now, when you're first trying to enter the market, you might be unsure which way to enter, who you should trust, but I would say, trust your gut sometimes, but you should know what a reliable partner is that you're looking for. You need to know what you're looking for before you try to enter that market. The fierce competition, especially in the shoe industry right now in Europe, with the athletic footwear, with the men's footwear increasing in sales, and the women's footwear having a lot of different variety and differentiation, we need to make ourselves a niche or a differentiated product that attracts the customers. As for red tape, well, red tape could mean a lot of things, honestly. It could mean bureaucratic policies, it could mean, taxes, interest rates, it could mean subsidies, different things maybe you're trying to go through that might take longer than you had expected because it's not America and they don't do business the same way. But for red tape, it's really that I want to push to be patient with your practices and to stay with your ethical codes and your own practices, and don't bend to anybody else's, especially in this growing international economy today. For communication, it is such an obstacle to have all these different languages. And if you don't speak the language, you might have slipped up and said something that maybe you don't know was wrong, but you just have to be an open mind and say, I'm sorry, and it's okay, and be willing to work with your business partners and have an open ear like they would be your friend sitting next to you at a dinner table. Especially going into establishing relationships. Relationships in international business, good ones, are hard to come by. You have to work at it. You have to become friends before you become business partners most of the time to know that you can trust them with your business. And for obstacles, especially going into Brown Shoe Company, going into Europe, There's already established relationships in Europe that have been established for years. There's big market players. There's also small niches and boutiques. So they have a huge obstacle to overcome to gain a huge share of that market. Now I'll give you a quick overview of the European footwear industry as it showed in the case. In 2012, there was over 21,000 enterprises in the European market for footwear companies, with over 24 billion in revenues, and I'm sorry there's a hiccup there, but it's 6.2 billion in added value, not 5.2. Now, 2/3 of the industry, I put Italy as a marker, but 2/3 of the industry is in Italy, Portugal, and Spain. However, Italy has over 50% of the production in that area. Now, I wanted to also bring to your attention the trade deficit, as the footwear industry is working under a deficit right now. However, the exports are still profitable in some way and have been growing. So although it's a deficit, it's never a complete loss there.
Now we're going to dive into the analysis of the footwear market in Europe. First thing we're going to do is go over the Porter's 5 forces. The first one is the buying power of the suppliers. We classify it as weak because there are so many low-cost manufacturers, especially located in Southeast Asia, that they're not going to have a lot of power. The Western companies, the footwear companies especially, are going to be a lot larger than these manufacturers, and they're going to be able to demand a price that they want to buy the shoe for a lot easier than the manufacturers are going to want to sell the shoe for. The next one is going to be the buyer power. We put that at a moderate level for a few reasons. First one is shoes are considered a necessity, and there's not going to be many substitutes for the shoe. So the buyer is not going to be able to demand a price from a large retailer as an individual. They're going to have to pay what they've been demanded of. But they also gain a little bit of power because there are so many substitutes and different brands that they can buy from. So if they are able to sacrifice a little bit of the fashion or a certain feature that maybe they aren't exactly in love with, they can easily switch over to another brand with a very low switching cost. The third one is going to be new entrants of companies, and that is classified as a strong threat. The reason that is a strong threat is because retail operations have a very low fixed cost, and because there are so many manufacturers in Southeast Asia that the companies that want to enter into this European market can find a distribution channel fairly quickly and easily that will work with them and probably do what they want them to do. The fourth one is going to be threat of substitutes, and we have another little mistake there. It's going to be more of a moderate because, like I said, there's not going to be a substitute for shoes. You're going to have to wear shoes if you're going to walk around on gravel or on pavement. There's nothing you can put on your feet to replace that. It is going to be a little bit of moderate because, like I said, consumers can switch to a different shoe, and they can go to a more universal shoe instead of buying different styles of shoe. So maybe instead of buying heels and flats and wedges, they just buy a tennis shoe that can get them anywhere they need to go every day throughout the entire day. And the last one is the degree of rivalry. We put this out as strong because in the European market there are several large companies that do compete very heavily. But with that, there also is several small companies that can get into the market and have gotten into it. And when these smaller companies get into the market, that increases the output capacity, which is going to cause these small companies to have fierce rivalry between them as well. And then the major companies are competing very heavily against each other.
Okay, so the mission of Brown Shoe Company is to inspire people to feel good and live better. Feet first. And there's two brands that we focus on today that really do accomplish the mission for Brown Shoe Company. Naturalizer is a brand whose attributes include being comfortable, light, affordable, stylish, and healthy. It targets women aged 35 to 49, and it's also unique because it offers hard-to-find sizes. Naturalizer can successfully move into the European market because it targets consumers who want to be confident. And so the women in the European market will look to Naturalizer for affordable style and to be sophisticated and functional as well. Sam Edelman is a brand whose attributes include being affordable yet trendy. Its consumers are young adults who follow top trends, targeting the market of 18-year-olds to 25-year-olds. It's set at a higher price point in order to match fashionableness of its competitors, but it still hopes to be more affordable than the designer labels. In the European market, young adults are those with a social style, and so this brand can really target that in offering something that's really similar and mirrors high fashion labels that they're seeing on runways. So in order to get these brands up and running in the European market, we've decided to do 3 things. Rename these brands, enter into a joint venture with an up-and-coming e-commerce business, and launch a pop-up store campaign. So Brown Shoe Company recently announced its rebranding strategy. The Brown Shoe Company will soon be called the Latin name Caleres, meaning passionate or glowing. And we don't want that change to stop there. We want these brands to also reflect the European culture. So we propose to change Naturalizer to the name Natura, which is Italian for nature, and changing Sam Edelman to Bellissimo Sam. It still has the Sam aspect to it because that's really important to have the Sam Edelman name on there, but then adds the Bellissimo to mean lovely in Italian. So the next step is to begin a joint venture with a company that we found called Farfetch. Farfetch is a company that provides designer luxury brands for men and women, and it's based in London. So it's an e-commerce website solely, and it stocks from over 300 boutiques around the world. Although it only started in 2008, it's currently valued at $1 billion. So Farfetch is an attractive partner for Caleres or Brown Shoe Company, whatever you want to call it currently, because it can gain local knowledge, take advantage of the distribution channels, limit some of the risk, and potentially expand into men's clothing, which it was looking into. So we've established the presence and awareness in this market. As previously mentioned, it's hard for new entrants to enter this market, but according to trends in European consumer behavior, pop-up stores are becoming more important. And the idea of pop-up stores are stores that show up, kind of get excitement going, and then they go away. So pop-up stores are typically 80% cheaper than a traditional retail store. The purpose is to get buzz started, like I said, spark interest, and generate awareness for a new brand. It also will allow Brown or Caleres to test the idea and the location before it actually invests in acquiring retail stores. So moreover, the pop-over stores will allow Brown to also gain consumer data. When consumers walk into the store, they can see what products they gravitate towards, how much they're willing to pay, how the store is set up, and if that works for the European culture. So how do we execute these pop-up stores? Caleres must choose locations with heavy foot traffic, and for this reason we've chosen 5 big cities in the 5 big important European countries: Madrid, Spain, London, England, Milan, Italy, Paris, France, and Berlin, Germany. The product offerings must be focused, as stores will not be as large as the traditional retail stores, and they'll also want to minimize their inventory costs if they're transporting it often and in a short period of time. It's also important to get information from the consumers in order to follow up for when we do choose to expand. And then pop-ups typically offer products at a lower selling price than normal stores, which is like a special offer, so it'll maybe make consumers more willing to go into these stores and purchase. Now, in order to get the buzz going about these pop-up stores and release information as to where they're going to show up and when, we've decided to launch a social media campaign. And so tweets with the hashtag pop-up and the specific location and when they're going to show up and the brand handles will be on there. So consumers really do know in the area when these stores are going to show up, get them really excited. And we've also talked about kind of having like the top 10% of retweeters getting a discount to these stores, so that gives them more incentive to retweet this and spread awareness and tell their friends and check these stores out. And then the timing of the pop-up store will depend on the fashion week in its respective cities. So for example, Madrid's Fashion Week and London's Fashion Week are September 18th through 22nd, 2015. So the pop-up store will arrive in London and Madrid on the Thursday through Sunday right after Fashion Week. And so you're getting the consumers who are still really excited about seeing these labels on the runway. And we also do suggest that the Caleres brand invest in participating in Fashion Week, and we have financials about that later on in order to gain presence and awareness and get people excited about seeing these stores really close to them.
Alright, so now let's talk about some of those financials that we were talking about. So yes, like we mentioned here, the purpose, one of the goals that was set out for us was to achieve a 15% ROIC, return on invested capital, in this venture here. So what we did, we ran some numbers to find out how much we should be expecting these stores to be selling each day to start off this analysis. What we did, we looked online and we looked at the case and found that the average price of shoes that were listed was around $125 across the brands that we would be selling in Europe now. So because of that, we figured that in order to achieve the goal of having $30 million in revenue in the next 5 years, we would need to sell 240,000 shoes in this 5-year period. So doing that across these 5 cities means that we need to get 48,000 shoes sold in each of these cities over the next 5 years. And breaking that down even farther, assuming 300 days of operation every year, that means that each store in those cities needs to sell 32 shoes every day, which seems like an achievable goal to us. Now, we also have the formula here for ROIC, and we've used that to determine the maximum amount of money we can be spending on this project. So working the formula down, we determined that, well, these are just some test numbers. We determined that the numbers that we want to stay below, the number is $250 million. Anything above that would result in us not achieving our goal. So that's our boundary. And now you can see here that we've worked on our budget. These are some of the numbers, and we've included things additionally such as production costs, marketing costs. We've got the costs of all the stores, employee labor. So taking all the costs into account, we believe that we would be spending around $140 million, which brings us well below the number that we need to stay below in order to meet our goal financially. So now, I'd like to show you a quick timeline of this to summarize our 5-year plan here in Europe. First, we'll begin this joint venture with Farfetch. And when we do that, we'll get the social media campaign going, we'll get pictures in magazines, we'll get the celebrity endorsements, and the marketing campaign will last for about 3 months, during which time we'll have these pop-up stores in all 5 of the cities. Once the pop-up stores have done their time for 4 days over the course of a week, we will gather the data they present. Assuming that the data shows it would be profitable for us to go to those cities, we will. And we'll do that with Farfetch. And through year 2 and 3, we'll operate, we'll start getting some money, we'll be successful. And by the beginning of year 3, we're going to start to look for some other opportunities without Farfetch. A joint venture is not supposed to be a permanent business structure, so by year 4, we would be anticipating we would have found some good opportunities to expand, without Farfetch. We would end the joint venture relationship at that point. And then year 5, we continue expanding, continue to profit, and we do believe that we would reach $30 million in revenue over that time span with this plan. One note that we would like to say at this point is, while doing all of this, we will be making significant efforts to be as environmentally friendly as possible. There are financial incentives here in America as well as Europe to make your business as green as possible, to reduce pollution, be as efficient as you can. So that's something that we'll be taking into account as well in this venture now. So with that said, we think that we've presented some innovative and effective ideas to get Brown Shoe Company into Europe while meeting the financial goals that were presented to us. So with that, thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them now.
Wow, that was fantastic. Congratulations. One quick question. You talked about rebranding both Sam Edelman and Naturalizer. Did you weigh up and make any considerations in terms of the risk for doing that?
All right. I just didn't know. Yes, I did consider the risk. I looked online at the brand, especially for Naturalizer and Sam Edelman, and I know that the Sam Edelman brand, I know I'm saying it wrong as well, sorry, is such an at-home brand. He signs his shoe. I know how it is with marketing, and I don't want to change that part of the Sam Edelman brand. I would love to still have that signature on it. I just want some Italian in it as well. I want to incorporate that on the box with a pretty flower that's gold, you know, something to get women to want to see what's in this box, and then, oh, it's got an American signature, how nice. You know, it's something different, I think. And for the Naturalizer brand, in my personal opinion, from having an aunt that is French and my cousins that speak French, Europeans like things that are in their language. And in France and in other countries such as Germany and, you know, Spain even, that they want something that sounds like they would buy it, they would use it every day. And even if natura is not the, you know, right word per se, naturalizer just sounds honestly like a hand sanitizer for me, and I would change it. It sounds a little bit too American. Hope that
Well,
answers
thank
your
you for
question.
the explanation. I'm not sure Sam Edelman would be too keen, but we'll leave that
That's
for
my
another.
advice
We'll leave
for
that for
you. Thank you.
another day.
Thank you.
I'll leave you to talk to him. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have. Do you have a backup plan? What if the joint venture negotiation doesn't turn out to be what you want, or the price of entry to be too high of a price to pay? Or
Yeah.
that, you know, why would Farfetch need Caleres?
Yeah, so Farfetch is a company that does their business online primarily, and they have been looking to expand. If they weren't to work out, we did find several other companies that are in a similar position who we believe would be potential partners for us to do this joint venture with as well. Now, Farfetch would benefit because they are doing their business online, and they want to expand into continental Europe. They've got plans to expand out of the United Kingdom. They are including China and Asia, so then continental Europe is obviously going to be good for them too. And we would benefit obviously because they have men's and women's brands, and they have already a foothold in the European markets that we could benefit from, since in this joint venture we'd be able to evade some tax laws with foreign companies. So
They're primarily in London, in England right now?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Right.
So do they need capital, or do they need your
Yeah.
design, or
We are-
what would they be looking for?
yeah, Brown Shoe is a larger company. It's over twice as big as Farfetch.
Okay.
So in this joint venture, we would anticipate that we would be we would have 2/3 of the control. They would have 1/3. So, you know, we would be the majority holder. And it makes sense just based on the financials that that's how it would work out. So, you know, we would be giving them some of our money, but they would be giving us some of their valuable, you know, foothold in the market.
One thing Farfetch does not have is how to run a store. They've been only online.
Okay.
They don't have any storefronts. So that's something Brown Shoe can bring to them. And they're a young company. They're only 7 years old. So they need to know how to run a store, especially in Europe. Now, Brown Shoe knows how to run a store in the United States and Canada. Hopefully they can translate that knowledge into how to run a store into Europe, into the rest of the countries.
Do they outsource all the shoes? Are they vertically integrated, designing and manufacturing, or just retail?
They're buyers. They buy
They
shoes.
just buy shoes?
They
all
buy
over
shoes and have
branded?
inventory.
Their
That
own
is-
brand, or?
No, they buy from multiple different locations. They buy from China a lot. They also buy they try to mainly buy from Italy, and then they default to China.
So they sell their own brand, or it's other
No,
people's
it's
brand?
other brand.
All
They're
everywhere.
not
Like-
manufacturing,
okay.
they're not streamlining, they're not doing the
So
price.
they're like the Zappos here in the US?
Yes, they're like the
Okay.
Zappos. That is similar.
Very good.
Would they own all the inventory, or would they just move the inventory, or how would the
How do you
stocking
think-
of the stores work?
I honestly, when I was looking at it, I don't think that it would be the best idea for them to own all the inventory, since we're the ones that are establishing the store and want to keep these stores after they're gone. We can assist them in making their own stores, but as for the inventory, we're going to be more of like the investor that helps them get along, but while we actually need the local knowledge that they have of the market, and it helps us get on that learning curve to increase our retailer stores to wholesaler distribution faster.
The pop-up stores, who handles and manages the pop-up stores?
That'll be people from Brown Shoe Company that typically just travel around with the store. So we talked about having someone who's really knowledgeable, has great selling tactics. So someone that wouldn't mind hanging out in Europe for a little bit.
Who would mind
And,
that?
and really just creating the awareness, making sure that people understand what the brand means. I mean, you could get local partners, but they're not going to understand what Solaris means as much as someone from the United States who really knows the company.
So the picture I saw with this long-legged,
That-
those saw, were they your design or was it something?
It was
from-
someone else's design. It was
Okay.
just to give you a visual example
Okay,
of what
yeah,
a boutique would
yeah.
look like that I thought was a cute one. You know?
Why wouldn't you just sell through Farfetch and many others, or I don't know how many, but why would you need a joint venture with them?
Actually, I thought about just going through the distribution channels that are already set and through retailers. And just the way I think about business, I'd rather do a joint venture because I feel like the company could actually get more out of it. It's not the typical everyday business that you already know you're doing. It's trying to do something new. It's trying to help a new, e-commerce site that just started within the past 10 years get on its feet, see if that can help. See what you can learn from them as an e-commerce business even. There's so many things to learn in the business world and it's changing rapidly that I didn't want to just go the typical route. I wanted to try a joint venture, and if that failed, then the contingency plan would be to just go with the distribution channels already set in retail and then, enter the normal way by making the retail stores the anchor and then making them up to wholesaler distributions and go with retail stores, department stores, kind of, traditional path, but I wanted to try something else.
Why a joint venture as opposed to just a direct investment?
Well, we
If you
think,
like it so much.
yeah, we think that this joint venture, we considered all the options. We really spent a lot of time on it. So in the end, we decided that this joint venture would help mitigate a lot of the risks that we would be facing by going into a territory that, this company has no experience in. Since Farfetch already is there, that eliminates plenty of obstacles that would be, very tangible problems for us down the road. And also, we would be the majority of control of this joint venture, so it's not as though we are just getting pushed around. And in the end, we think that really it's the best option to secure, the financial results that we were asked to do.
So they're not in continental Europe, so they're not bringing anything to your company outside of England.
They're not
Right.
physically in continental Europe, but
But
they
they're
have,
just a few
they get-
miles, they're just a little bit closer than you are.
Yeah.
But in terms of culturally, in terms of business practice, a lot of people look at Europe as one market, but really the UK market is totally different than the continental Europe. And then within the continental is all, Italian is different than French as well. So,
Yeah.
but
Um,
anyway,
To address that, actually, I thought about that, and I picked someone that was in the UK and not in continental
Yeah.
Europe for that reason, because we already have a shoe designer, Brown Shoe Company does, in Italy. We already have people in the continental Europe section, and to be able to branch out to the UK, since it is in the European Union and follows the same laws and tax evasions and things, that it could actually be leveraged to our advantage, I feel, in a new marketing tactic that maybe people haven't thought of before.
Do you consider a pan-European retailer for us to partner with?
A patent?
A pan-European?
Oh, pan-European.
Yeah,
I have.
a retail,
like a retailer.
Marks and Spencer.
Marks and Spencer, Barter.
Nothing like that. We didn't end up
Okay.
having any serious discussions about that.
Okay.
I would say there's no serious discussions, but I've been to China 3 times and I'm actually moving to China in September.
Wow.
And I wanted to stay away from that personally because I want to go to China I speak Chinese and I want to learn their business practices and everything. But personally, because I've been in Shenzhen, China and had a job in Guangdong province, I don't feel like Brown Shoe Company's culture and values necessarily fit all of the business that's going on there, and that I would prefer to see the distribution spread across the board. And
Romeo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you for your time.
Very good.
Thank
you, very good.
Lovely.
Enjoyed the presentation very much. Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.